You're looking at the answer choices for 3 different SAT grammar questions. To most people, these questions look the same. The verb tenses are changing, so we'll probably need to think about the overall tense of the sentence and then pick the verb that best matches everything else. For instance, whether we need the past or present tense. But this way of thinking is a mistake. These 3 questions test completely different grammar rules, and learning how to tell these 3 rules apart can significantly improve your accuracy on the SAT grammar sections. In fact, the reason many students struggle with grammar is that they don't know how to identify the main grammar rule in a question by looking at the answer choices. By the end of this lesson, you will know how to distinguish the 3 types of verb tense rules. I'll also put separate lessons on each of these rules on the Settele Tutoring channel. Let's go through each of these questions to see how verb tense is tested. The first question reads, considered by some to be the first original American musical art, jazz music blank in communities around New Orleans at the beginning of the 20th century. This is what most people think every verb tense question is about. The sentence is clearly talking about the past, so we should look for a past tense verb in our choices. Choice A is the future tense, B is the present, C is a weird hypothetical tense, but D gives us what we're looking for. Don't think more deeply about the question. The sentence gave us a clue that we are talking about the past, and only one answer choice is in the past tense. I label questions like this as past, present, future because those are the most basic tenses in the English language. Even weird tenses, like the would in choice C, should be thought of first in simple past, present, future terms. Choice C is weird because it can talk about both the past and the future, but we shouldn't worry ourselves with those complexities unless we absolutely have to. This sentence is not weird. It's clearly talking about the past and only the past, so don't second guess yourself. Choice D is a clear, simple past tense, so we can confidently pick it without obsessing over the nuanced grammar rules that make this particular version of the past tense correct in this specific situation. As with many SAT strategies, the best move on grammar questions is to dumb things down. If the sentence gives you some obvious clue about the time of the event, follow it to the answer. The second example seems to be testing the same rule. We have present tense verbs in A, B, and C, and choice D is in the past tense. But this question has nothing to do with the timing of the action. Past, present, and future will not affect my answer choice at all. Instead, we can categorize these choices based on whether the verb is singular or plural before we even read the question. We're being asked to think about verb agreement, which is about making sure that the verb matches with the subject that does the action. Singular subjects need singular verbs, and plural subjects need plural verbs. This rule can get complicated, but I hope the answer choices are already hinting that choice B is probably the right answer. There is only one singular verb in the choices, so it's probably because the subject of the sentence is also singular. Let's see. The enzyme, which is best known for helping in the production of antibodies, blank in the nucleus of the cell during mitosis. The which clause is meant to distract us from the subject at the beginning of the sentence, which is the singular enzyme. Now we have proof that choice B is correct. The enzyme forms in the nucleus. The verb agreement rule has some annoying twists that I'll cover in a separate lesson, so don't worry if you're a little confused right now. Your main takeaway should be that the purple question on the left and the pink question in the middle are not testing the same thing, even though the answer choices look very similar. The green question on the right is also completely different from the other two. Let's see why. Barnacles blank on the hull of a ship because it is a stable surface that passes through currents rich in the nutrients on which the barnacles feed. Without much effort, my brain naturally moves toward choice D. Barnacles form on the hull of a ship. This has nothing to do with the time period of the sentence or whether the verb is singular or plural. Instead, I'm thinking about sentence structure. My name for this rule is to and ing because the answer choices will almost always include both the to version of the verb and an ing version of the verb. Sometimes one of those versions will be correct. It just depends on the structure of the sentence. For example, the ing versions of verbs often create sentence fragments that we can attach to the main sentence using commas. Mostly, I'm picking D because it sounds right, and lots of to and ing questions can be solved just by listening to the different choices in the blank. Does the verb make it sound like a complete sentence or an incomplete fragment? You'll need to look at the commas and clauses around the blank to know which kind of structure the sentence needs. I'll talk more about the various structures in a separate lesson, but for now, let's finish by looking at the overall strategy for verb tense questions. I'm going to clear the board back to where we started. The goal for SAT grammar is that we should not need to look at the sentences at all to know which grammar rules are tested in a question. A quick glance at the answer choices should be enough that we can predict the question fairly confidently. Normally, this is very easy on the SAT because we can quickly spot punctuation or pronouns and start thinking about those rules. But verb tense questions are difficult precisely because the answer choices for the three rules look too similar for many people to distinguish. But there are subtle clues that can help you significantly. The first thing you should always do when you see verbs in the choices is classify the verbs as singular or plural. In the middle pink question, every single choice can be labeled this way. But look at the purple and green questions. Only a few of the choices can be classified. That's because singular and plural only exist in a few tenses in English, and for the rest, singular and plural don't matter, which means they probably don't matter for solving those SAT questions. Let's just take choice A on the left as one example. We could talk about one singular person, Jack will form a band. Or we can talk about multiple people, Jack and Jill will form a band. Notice that the verb doesn't change. This is actually the most common way we experience verbs in real life. On the SAT, what we're seeing from these answer choices is that the purple and green questions probably aren't testing singular versus plural verb agreement, but the pink question in the middle almost certainly is. For this reason, the verb agreement rule gives us a powerful way to filter all verb tense questions. Verb agreement is the main verb rule. We should always check for it first. If you classify the choices as singular or plural, and they look more like the purple and green questions, where half of the choices can't be classified, then you're probably not being tested on verb agreement. Instead, look for clues in the sentence that announce the time period of the blank, focusing on simple tenses like past, present, and future. You might also notice that the choices include the to and ing forms of the verb, which is a strong indicator that you're actually being tested on sentence structure and punctuation, like in the green question on the right. Notice that the purple question on the left does not include the to and ing tenses. You will get better at predicting these three rules with practice, but you have to make a conscious effort to make a prediction. I recommend treating every SAT grammar question this way. Look at the answer choices first and think about grammar rules that might be important before you read the sentence with the blank. If the choices include verbs, then quickly identify singulars, plurals, and the ones that can't be classified. Most students struggle with verb tense because they treat all of these rules the same way. So start learning how to tell them apart. Hopefully this lesson gave you enough information to get you started.